Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September 12th, 2023 regular meeting and work session of the Pinehurst Village Council. We've had a few weeks off, and therefore we have a very busy and varied agenda tonight. We look forward to your participation. Those of you who are gathered in the room, if you want to make comments under the public comments section of the regular meeting, you're welcome to do so, but please sign the information and sign-up form at the back of the room. As we go through the agenda and approach that part of our meeting, the village clerk will bring that sign-up sheet to me, and you're welcome to comment on any items, any subjects whatsoever that you might wish to do, whether they've been covered in tonight's business meetings or not. If you are listening to this meeting on our live stream and you want to make comments to the village council, you may do so by sending an email to the address public comments, 2 C's, public comments at vopnc.org, and that information will go to the village clerk. The village clerk will later distribute that information to the village council members and appropriate staff. With council approval, I want to make a slight change in the agenda. I would like to go straight to the installation of Tom Henney and then go to council reports after that. Would that be acceptable to the other members of the village council? Fine enough. And when we do that, then we'll talk about the agenda further. All right, so at this point, I'd like to ask Mr. Henney to step forward with the village clerk for the swearing in, and anyone, Tom, that you wish to join you can join you at that point by the podium. Thank you. And I would ask all of us here in the Assembly Hall to stand, please. Tom, we welcome you to the Village Council to fulfill the term of Jane Hogeman. And although that's only a period of a couple of months, we know that your contribution here and your interest in the village is strong, and we look forward to your comments and participation in all of our decisions over these next few months. Having called the meeting to order and sworn in Mr. Henney, we'll move on to item number 2, which is village reports. Normally at this time, Jeff Sanborn, as village manager, would make reports. Jeff is ill today and not able to attend this meeting, but I'll ask Deputy Assistant Village Manager Jeff Batten, does he have any comments on behalf of staff?
I just would like to announce that, as y'all have seen that are in here, that Shannon Constantino has now been promoted as our village clerk. Shannon was in the Planning and Inspections Office previously, doing somewhat similar work with the P&Z Board and BOA and HPC, and taking care of their minutes and getting all their meetings posted and meeting all the statutory requirements. So we're glad to see and have Shannon officially in this role as village clerk.
Shannon,
other, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nope.
I was just saying on behalf of the council to Shannon, we've experienced your expertise over the years from the Historic Commission and Planning Department, among many jobs you've had there. And it's a great example of how people have upward mobility in the village staff, coming into one position and moving on to others over time. So we welcome you as a new village clerk and look forward to your assistance in these coming months. Thank you very much, Shannon. Jeff?
Only other thing, I believe, looks like most of you have picked up the community satisfaction survey results. So we've just received those this week, and just wanted to remind you to pick them up if you had not out of your box. And I'm sure we'll be reviewing those over the next several weeks and interpreting the results in preparation for our retreat in December.
Thank you, Jeff. My report would be 3 different items. In August, actually August the 9th, some of you may have been there, I attended the installation of Sandy Stewart, the new president of Sandy Hills Community College. Sandy is a veteran and of Pinehurst in many different ways, and it's nice to have him back in our community. I think many of you have probably met him in other gatherings that have been held on his behalf during the last month or will be held in the next few weeks. He comes with a great background for the college, and I know that the contributions of that school, which are many and deep in Moore County and our area here in Pinehurst, of course, will be very well respected and successful over the years. So we wish him the best. I'll also call your attention to the fact that a couple of meetings ago, the Village Council approved the renaming of our Village Council chamber in the other building in honor of Virginia Jinsey Fallon, the longtime council member and mayor here in Pinehurst. That ceremony to officially rename the room will be October the 12th at 2 p.m. That's a Thursday, October 12th at 2 p.m. In that conference room. And the public is invited, and we've making an outreach to not only members of Jinsey's family who are coming here from out of state, but many others who participated with her during her time as mayor and on the village council here in Pinehurst. Yesterday was September 11. Like many of you, we all were very much affected by that day 22 years ago. I'm delighted that the village flags were out as previously planned, of course, for that day and other federal special days. I attended services over in Southern Pines, which were held through their police and fire departments and the mayor. And then I visited Chief Cole and Captain Guthrie of the police department, who was the man on duty yesterday, and Carlton, to you and to our police department as well. We respect your efforts and remember 9/11 as we do every year. Those would be my reports. I'll move on to council members now, and I'll start with Lydia. Would you have any reports this week?
Thank you, John. From the Convention Visitors Bureau, this is hot news today. Last spring, you may remember, they did a pine cone pathways where they put these gorgeous, unique glass pine cones in our parks all over Moore County in celebration of the Year of the Trail. Well, it was such a smashing success that they're going to do one more day. It's going to be Saturday, October 21st, and it's to commemorate Great Trails Day in North Carolina. Only 10 pine cones will be put out on 10 trails in Moore County. To make it worth your while, they've made the gifts, the prizes, pretty nifty. The prizes include 2 tickets to a practice round for the U.S. Open, 2 adult tickets to the Aberdeen, Carolina, and Western Railroad Christmas train, and several other items. So you can look for that at homeofgolf.com. Another neat thing that's going on in the village, and I've got an application here and we have them out front. It's a program called Rock the Village, and it's done in connection with CVB and Pinehurst Business Partners in the Village of Pinehurst. And you can sponsor a rocking chair and find an artist to paint it, and it's got to be a golf theme or an Olmsted theme. And these rocking chairs will be out on the streets of Pinehurst, April through October? May through
I'm not
October,
sure.
June? Yeah, it's through the summer.
Before
so-
and after the U.S. Open.
Yeah, before and after the U.S. Open. So, and you can get an adult chair or a child's chair. So you rent the chair, you find an artist, and then the chair goes out there, and when it's all over, you get to keep the chair. Another thing that's going on, and this really drew my attention for you, A spur rail is being put in along the railroad track right by the cradle. So between the railroad track and the cradle, they're putting in a spur track. And that's where the railroad can bring trains down there for entertainment. But one of the neatest things about the project, Pat, they took down the electrical lines. So I don't know what's better, the track itself or the fact that the lines are gone. And another thing that was pretty special is Jane Hogeman's obituary was in the pilot this Sunday. If you haven't seen it and you still have the pilot, please go look at it. It was a wonderful tribute to Jane. So that's all I have.
Jeff Morgan?
Reiterate the comments you made about 9/11. I thought the village did a great job with that. Thank you. I attended the Central Pines Regional Council meeting in August 23rd. That used to be known as TJ Cog on there, and not a whole lot to report from there, with the exception that they have put a new slate of officers. They elected those for the Central Pines Regional Council. And then of a special note to us, and a very moving thing, Jane Hogeman used to be the representative for our council in the first 2 years of her term. And they did a resolution honoring her life, and it was a very moving and very well structured resolution. But I certainly gave our thanks from Pinehurst on the recognition for her service, and that was the focus of it. It was not only just the great person that Jane was, but the service she had to not only Pinehurst, but in the greater TJ Cog and Central Regional Pines. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Pat?
Thank you. When I attended yesterday the Beautification Committee, which is Janet Farrell, the chairman, is back from being on the injured reserve list, and it was another well-run meeting. And I can tell you they are already gearing up for the Christmas season, as well as adding their helping hand to the downtown amenities program that's going on, working closely with staff, Jeff Batten and others. So they're on the job. I also attended the Moore County Economic Development Partnership Board meeting on September 5th, and we had a guest presentation from Dr. Sandy Stewart from the Sand Hills Community College, talking about some ideas he has about working more closely with the business community. And the major topic had to do a lot with job training and how the Sand Hills Community College can help our local businesses as well as ones that are trying to be attracted to the community. I also had the opportunity to attend the celebration of life for Alicia Watts, the person who was murdered. She was a native of Pinehurst. I found this out. So I went to that ceremony. It was quite a large turnout, and she had quite a remarkable life and obviously left us too soon. And nope, this is for later discussion. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Tom, you've been a member of the council about 5 minutes. Do you have a lengthy report to make tonight, and would you make any comments at all?
Thank you very much. I just want to say that I am really deeply honored and very grateful just to be here. Something totally unexpected that found my lap, so I will do the best that I can for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. We'll move through reports then and go on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is a motion to approve our consent agenda. Are there any parts of the consent agenda that remain under discussion by members of the council, or any council member wish to have anything in those reports removed for further discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, please? Item number 4.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
That's a motion by Lydia Bosch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Morgan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to item number 5, which is a resolution appointing Mr. Tom Schroeder to be the chairperson of the Board of Adjustment. Tom, would you please come forward for just a moment? Alex, thank you. I see both those microphones are not working just yet, so you can push the buttons and you're ready. Alex, would you like to proceed?
Sure. So this agenda item is for council to consider the appointment of Tom Schroeder as chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. As you guys recently appointed Tom as a member of both the Planning and Zoning Board and member of the Board of Adjustment. The chair position is currently vacant, and it has been vacated since early spring when David Alzamora's term expired. So we've been running without a chair, but Jack Farrell, who serves as vice chair, has gotten us through this bridge. And it's obviously it's a very important position. The Board of Adjustment acts and has to conduct meetings very differently than some of the other advisory boards. We're very fortunate to have many capable board members, and Tom is certainly one of those who has also expressed the willingness to step into that position. And so staff has thought through this quite extensively. There's been some communication, obviously, with village staff and council members and other members of the Board of Adjustment, and so that's what elevated Tom to your consideration.
Thank you, Alex. Tom, of course, we just recently appointed you to the Planning Board, which also, since all Planning Board members are, what do we call them, all alternate members of the Board of Adjustment, you were technically assigned then, but this is different, and we're delighted you'd accept this nomination if approved. I know that a part of your background deals pretty specifically with the way that Board of Adjustment meetings need to be managed, and I wondered if you wanted to talk just a little bit about that tonight, and we'll take other questions from the council. I know it's something that you've done very well in the past.
Okay. I just come off not too long ago a 6-year run on the HPC, which is also a quasi-judicial board.
Speak up a little bit, Tom.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I come off about 6 years of being on the HPC, part of which was the vice chair on there as well, and conducted meetings on that. I have a background as a judge for 12 years, which gives me some insight as to the judicial side of quasi-judicial, and particularly some of the terminology comes from the legal world as part of that. So I've got experience in that area as well.
Thank you for updating us on that. Are there questions of council members to Tom or Alex at this time on this appointment? Seeing none, is there a motion to make this appointment, number 5?
Yeah, I move to approve Resolution 2342, appointment of Thomas Schroeder as the chairperson to the Board of Adjustment.
That's a motion by Pat Pizzella. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff Morgan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried unanimously. Tom, thank you very much in advance for your service. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 6, and we may have to, no, here we are. Hi, Janine. This is a presentation that we've been planning over a couple of months by Janine Driscoll and others from the USGA to bring us up to date on the status of Golf House Pinehurst and also a view ahead for the 2024 U.S. Men's Open, which I believe is to be in Pinehurst, North Carolina, just in a few months' time. Leighton, good to see you tonight, too. While Janine is getting her technology update with our folks, Leighton will take would you just introduce yourself while we're waiting for that, please?
I'm Leighton Schwob. I'm the Senior Director of Operations for the USGA, so oversee kind of all the facility construction and the operation of the event. I've been with USGA since 2006. Actually, my first event was here in
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Why don't we turn the microphone on?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was off. Should be a solid, just push it once, Leighton, and it'll be a solid green.
You're there.
There we go. There we go.
Go again if you wouldn't mind, Leighton.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
sure.
And then Janine can introduce herself.
Yep, I'm Leighton Schwob. I'm the Senior Director of Operations for the USGA. My first event was actually here in 2005, working for Pinehurst Resort, and then was the championship manager for the 2014 back-to-back championships here in Pinehurst, and have been officed here for the last 13 years, and excited to have a home game again here in Pinehurst.
Janine, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you, Mayor Strickland, for allowing us to be here, and to all the members of the council. My name's Janine Driscoll. I'm the Director of Brand Communications for the USGA. Originally worked with Leighton at Pinehurst Resort and Country Club, so I'm also an alum from 2000 to 2010. Joined the USGA in 2014, so my first US Open was our back-to-back working for the USGA. I've been in New Jersey since that time, and then during COVID, the USGA asked me to move back as we were getting ready to develop Golf House Pinehurst. So it's a coming back home, and I'm pleased to be back in Moore County.
We look forward to your comments. Please proceed.
Yes, of course. I know that your time is limited, but Mayor Strickland, thank you very much, and to the entire council for your support of Golf House Pinehurst. As you can see in the village, it is coming along very well, and I'm happy to share some photos as well as an update for you. And I'll be followed right by Leighton, who will give you an update on the US Open. First, let me congratulate Mr. Henney for being a member of the council. It's a pleasure to meet you, and to also share our regards for Jane Hogeman. She was integral in all of our development plans for Golf House Pinehurst, and she will be missed. We learned quite a bit from her through this process, and the absence of her in this chamber is felt by us, and we just wanted to recognize how important she has been to us. Many of these slides will look familiar to you, but for those that are in the audience, I'm happy to share them very quickly with you. The first thing that I wanted to share is that the USGA very much from the beginning of the building of Golf House Pinehurst wanted to share with this community much more than our championships, the 15 national championships that we conduct every year. And we wanted to bring all aspects of the USGA to Pinehurst. So it's important that we be grounded first in what the USGA does, which is to unify, showcase, govern, and advance the game. And you'll see that reflected in all of our plans that we have here. Many of you know that when we developed Golf House Pinehurst, that we developed it specifically with this big idea in mind to play a unique and vital role in championing and advancing the game of golf worldwide. So what you're going to see in this campus plan, to remind those that were here before and for those that are new to it, is that the campus would share our values, that it would be open to all, it would be sustainable, it would be a center for innovation, technology, and research, and that it would respect history while not being afraid to make some. So this is what we can show you from a campus perspective right now. And to ground everybody, you can see the arrows that are pointing up and down. We are literally at 3 Carolina Vista, right in between the Carolina Hotel and the main clubhouse. So we are ideally situated to be right in the heart of golf, and we are very thankful to have this 6+ acre piece of property. What you will see on this campus is the grove. That is the restoration of the pine grove that is happening in the top corner of this diagram that you're seeing here, which I'll share more about in a moment. You'll see the front lawn and the entry plaza, which is currently in construction right now, along with a linear driveway on the right-hand side that will allow people to drive up, be dropped off, and then enter the property. The USGA Experience and the World Golf Hall of Fame Museum, that is the building that is up on the top next to the Pine Grove. The USGA Test Center and Administration Building, that is the lower building that you will see on this diagram. And then the Glade, which is our pollinator garden that's situated in between those two buildings. Of course, you'll see the event lawn that is also to the back of the Test Center and the Administration Building. As we showed the Historic Preservation Commission, and again to all of you, we really wanted our buildings to look like they had always been there, and I believe that once we are complete with them, mostly by the end of this year and into next year, that they will look like they have always been here. And we certainly worked with Clearscapes, our architect, to make sure that we reflected everything that you see here. For many of you, you have already seen these, but just to orient you, these are our two buildings and what will comprise the front of our campus. To the far right is the USGA Experience and the World Golf Hall of Fame, which will be in the upper floor. And then the building that is over to the left and in the rear is the USGA Test Center and Administration Building. What you will see here is simply an update. The vast majority of what you're seeing here is all the test center and our administration building. That project has been expedited so that we will be complete with this building and we'll have 65 people located in this building by the end of the year. So to orient you, the bottom floor is the test center where all of the golf balls and golf equipment that is manufactured in the US will be tested on the bottom floor, and then on the top floor, our administration building. You can see over to the right, the second building, the USGA Experience and the World Golf Hall of Fame, which we anticipate will be complete by May of next year. So this is the back of the building, like many of you have seen, and this is where our values really come to life through this pollinator garden and the glade. There will be a series of signage points and education points all the way through the back of this property that will connect on the right-hand side, the Equipment and Test Center, and to the left, the museums. As you all know, we really wanted to be able to show our values of sustainability in the Golf House Pinehurst project and our entire landscape plan in connection with the USGA Green Section experts that we have on staff, along with our partners at NC State and the Village of Pinehurst have all been able to help us on our landscaping plan. And one of the key issues that we really wanted to cover was how we could educate the public about what we believe about sustainable landscapes. So this is the plan for the glade. It'll be a learning, living lab, so plants that will educate as well as inform. You'll see these curvilinear lines that are in the glade that pays homage to Olmsted, who you know never liked a right angle and always loved to get us lost in the village. So you'll very much see that plan reflected in the glade that we have here. You'll see bioretention stormwater basins filled with those native plants and pollinators. Many of you know of the stormwater and how the land specifically slopes. We have built a plan that takes advantage of that stormwater runoff and allows these plants to really be irrigated and taken care of by the natural slope of the land. The plants that will be in here are all drought resistant, and they all provide color year round, which we're very happy with. Again, we've been working with NC State University on our research programs for several years, so we have been happy to collaborate with them directly. Plants that you'll see inside the glade include redbuds, azaleas, hydrangeas, milkweed, which many of you know is a key pollinator for monarch butterflies. Very important to us because the USGA has been a critical mover with the Audubon Society of creating pollinator gardens for the monarch butterfly on more than 1,000 acres of golf courses throughout the United States. So we very much wanted to bring that forward. And again, you also see the switchgrass, the water willow, the blue stem, the black-eyed Susans. It is going to be one of the most beautiful spots that we have on the campus, and it will be open to the public. So we're encouraging people as they walk through the village to be able to use it for contemplation and knowledge and just sharing the outdoors, which are so important to the historic values of Pinehurst itself. And again, I'm not going to go into great detail about the sustainability opportunities other than to show you that from the pine grove to the glade to the event lawn, all the way through to the bioswales, we really have taken advantage of the land and the property that we have to really be able to show our values. And you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So we're looking forward to not only letting the signage take advantage of that, but for us to do educational opportunities so that we can share the knowledge that we have from the experts that we have in-house. This is just showing you what our office space will look like on the second floor of the test center. And I've listed all of the departments that we'll call Pinehurst home. And with it, you'll see our Open Championships division, our Green Section and Research division, Equipment Standards, Player Relations and Development, and then support personnel for Handicapping Museum, Marketing, Communications, HR, Building and Grounds. Just about every department within the USGA will be represented in the 65 people that will be in this building. And you're going to see on the top floor, there's about 3 spaces upstairs that look like this. So we are all excited to be in this building. Several of those people have already moved and have been working at home, so we're eager to get inside the building and start working together. This is just representative of the test center. Provided that everything goes according to plan and we get our certificate of occupancy, we will start moving in equipment in late November and into December and then carry through at the beginning of the year. There's quite a bit of equipment that we have to move from our Liberty Corner office here into Pinehurst. And I'm just going to show you a couple of the photos of some of the equipment that we have to move. What you'll see on the top left is our indoor test range where we test golf balls, so that mechanical, it's almost like a baseball swinging machine that tests golf balls. And then on the right, our mechanical golfer that helps us test equipment, all of which will be based in Pinehurst. I just wanted to show you very briefly some of the updated documents about the USGA experience, our museum. We're very excited to be able to open this to the public. This diagram shows the lobby area of the USGA experience. So as you go in, it provides a museum-like experience. You'll see on the left-hand side, the Science of Golf Gallery, to the right, the Championship Gallery, and then to the back, our USGA Museum, where we will move our exhibits around on a 6-month rotational schedule. I think you all know the USGA has the richest, deepest archive of golf artifacts in the world, and 90% of our assets are in our vault, so we are excited and thrilled to be able to bring those to Pinehurst on a regular basis, including our art collection, our memorabilia, our books, and the many things that we have available in Liberty Corner that we're able to bring here. You'll see the Championship Gallery, which will have an interactive video screen that will show video shorts as well as a series of video screens around the room. This championship experience will not only have some of our championship trophies, but tell the story of how we bring the U.S. Open to life. I think Leighton probably wrote that. And then the Science of Golf Gallery that will be very forward-thinking and talk about everything related to the science of golf, from the physics of the golf ball and how it travels to the agronomy of a golf hole. You'll see this wooden sculpture, hanging sculpture in the middle that is one of the golf holes of Pinehurst number 2 that will be used as an educational tool to teach people about the physics of how golf balls travel, and then a series of interactive screens throughout the room. Very excited about this as well. And then the museum galleries that I spoke of that will be interactive space that will allow us to hold seminars, art talks, a variety of history talks about what we know about the game of golf. And then this last piece, the World Golf Hall of Fame Museum, will be available starting in May with all luck. You can see it has a very large rotunda. It'll look like a golf ball. It'll be extremely exciting to see a lot of trophies on how these champions of the game really develop their skills to be a Hall of Famer, along with each of the lockers of each of the World Golf Hall of Fame inductees. I'm sure you know that part of our agreement in working with the World Golf Hall of Fame and the World Golf Foundation was to bring the induction ceremony to Pinehurst every time that Pinehurst held a U.S. Open. So we'll be excited to have the induction ceremony on Monday of U.S. Open week. They've already announced several of those, all of the inductees, including several from the founding members of the LPGA will be among that crew. So a very exciting moment for Pinehurst. You'll be on a worldwide stage, and we're excited to bring that to all of you and to have them housed, their memorabilia housed in the second floor of the USGA Experience Building. Just to summarize, we really want to be an active citizen in this great golf community. I think you know we are already working with Sandhills Community College on the Greenkeeper Apprenticeship Program that has been going on since January. Our first cohort of 20 will graduate at the end of December with a North Carolina Community College apprenticeship certificate, and will automatically get a pay upgrade. Several, in fact, all of the 20 members of the first class all come from Pinehurst area golf courses. So we are only hoping to expand that in January. And you're going to see much more that we are going to do to really contribute to this community because it's our home now. We want to engage more golfers. That's exactly why we're here and why we want more people to be at Golf House Pinehurst, to share our expertise, our resources, our energy, and you'll see that come to life through our educational programs, and then to celebrate those moments, those places, those people and actions in golf, which will come from the World Golf Hall of Fame, our Bob Jones Award winners, and so many more people that we can't wait to bring to this community. Just an ask for the rest of the community that you help us continue to welcome all of our teammates in. About half to 2/3 are already here, but we have several that will be moving in Q3 and Q4, moving their families. And it has really been a community effort to find them housing, to get their kids in school, and for them to be productive citizens of the community. I'd say the vast majority have moved into Pinehurst, so you'll feel lucky about that. Just timeline that I wanted to share with you as well. You're seeing the siding go up primarily on the test center and the admin building. And the sustainable spaces, we have already planted 16 longleaf pine trees, and the sustainable grasses are going in right now. We are embarking on a very big water project to help golf reduce its use of water by 45%. So you're going to see us put in some new and emerging technology related to water conservation specifically in this space. November to December, hopefully, will be the exterior of the test center and admin building will be complete. We're hoping in early December to move our staff in there completely. January, as I mentioned, the Greenkeeper Apprenticeship second program will begin. May of 2024, our USGA Experience, the Hall of Fame ceremony, and then the first round of the U.S. Open Championship. That is a perfect segue for me to point directly to Leighton, and I'll turn it over to him for U.S. Open.
Thank you, Janine. Always tough to follow a Golf House Pinehurst presentation, but just wanted to give everyone kind of an update on where we're at with U.S. Open planning. I think first I would start with saying that The USGA is incredibly excited to be back here hosting championships. Selfishly and personally, I'm extremely excited as well to be here hosting championships. We love coming here and the support that we get, especially from the village and the community as a whole. It just makes our job so much easier and makes it more rewarding. And we're super fortunate and blessed to be back here hosting our championship. So thank you for allowing us to come back here and do what we do. So I'll just, again, give a quick brief update of where we're at with U.S. Open planning. Things are progressing extremely well. We're fortunate to have some history of some successful past championships here, but as you'll see, and I'll probably focus on it a little bit more in this presentation, some of the things that might be a little bit different or unique from what we've done in the past. But the championship, Janine alluded to, starts June 10th as our first practice round. 3 days of practice rounds moving into the championship rounds. We're anticipating the total attendance about 250,000 for the week. Again, a global media presence. We're airing it in 190 countries, over 75 hours of live TV. So certainly a lot of eyeballs will be on Pinehurst for championship week. From a volunteer update, we have about 4,200 total volunteers that'll be in our program. We actually were higher in the past. Part of it was the back-to-back, but we've also scaled back a little bit on kind of the overall volunteer numbers. And we actually went to a wait list in June, this past June, and have over 1,200 people already sitting on the wait list to volunteer. And that's just, again, a testament to the community and the support we get both here in Pinehurst and Moore County and in the state as well. We have all 50 states represented, 6 countries as well are represented on our volunteer committee. From a hospitality standpoint, we went on sale in February of 2022. We start with a lot of our partners and people who have been with us for a while, and then we open it up to really the local community, a lot of the people that were involved in the past championships as well, and sales are off to a tremendous start over the last, a year and a half. So all of our individual tenant spaces have been sold. We're working on suites, which is a new structure that we have on the 10th hole. It's a double-decker structure. If you watched at all this year at LA, you saw a few of those. But we have the suite facilities, so we have a couple of those remaining, and then we have some tables within our Champions Pavilion. And then the 1895 Club, which is a new facility, which is actually what you can see in that photo on the right-hand side. So this is a rendering that's been done. This is the 18th green, the 18th hole, where we've traditionally had our larger grandstand. And so we've been able to come up with a new concept working with our vendors of creating a hospitality space within that grandstand itself. So if you see in the middle of that grandstand on the left, there's some glass there, and enclosed in there will be a very, very high-end hospitality space with some dedicated seating. It really hasn't impacted or much our general spectators that'll have access to the 18th green, so it's still going to be a tremendous environment around the 18th green, but it's an opportunity we saw was there and are excited to unveil it here. I think the other big change from a hospitality standpoint is in the past, you can see it a little bit on this image, but behind this is the Maniac Hill, which is the driving range at Pinehurst Resort, and that's always been the home of our hospitality villages, and we've taken that hospitality and moved it out onto the golf course. So now we have hospitality separate from this across the 18th hole. We'll have a village, and we have hospitality on 18, 17, 16, 15, and the 10th hole. So we've taken hospitality and given them a more premium view to try to enhance their experience. But overall, we feel very great with kind of the support we've been receiving both kind of locally and across the country as well. People are very excited for the championship to come back here. From a ticket standpoint, we went on sale this June with our weekly ticket options and have been off to a good start. I think one thing that's, we've realized as an organization over the last couple of years is bigger isn't always better. In this, Pinehurst has always been the largest attended U.S. Open we ever had. In 2005, we had over 325,000 people that attended during the championship week. It still holds, if you look at every individual day, it holds 6 of the 7 days, the individual day attendance record. Torrey Pines got us by a little bit on Friday of the championship in 2008, but otherwise Pinehurst holds all the other individual day records. But what we've realized over the last couple of years is that we need to make sure we're giving that premium experience to the general fans that are coming to the championship. And so we've actually scaled our attendance numbers down a little bit more. Where we were in 2014 and 2005 in the past, we were anywhere from 40 to 45,000 per day of general admission tickets. We're probably more in the 32,500 to 35,000 per day, and that's, again, a conscious effort to give people a more premium experience and allow them to, get up and see golf a little bit more and just overall have a better experience when they're on site. Some of the options that we've done some more enhanced ticket options. So we've had the Trophy Club in the past, which is an upgraded ticketed facility, but the Garden is a new facility for us, which is a kind of an open air environment. So it's really between the gallery and the Trophy Club. We've opened up that option. And then we've done some reserve grandstand seating out on course for 2 of the holes. So far, tickets have been great, and we're looking forward to kind of continuing that push over the next couple of months. From a park and transportation standpoint, we're still working through the plan a little bit, but it's worked successfully here the last couple of years. You can see the image on the right is from the harness tractor in the 2014 US Open. So very similar overall plan. There's a few tweaks that we're working through. Identify 2 to 3 general spectator lots. So we have our north lot secured. We're working through the southern option. And then we're working through the various satellite parking operations, the taxi, limo, Uber, Lyft, drop. And again, our goal is to minimize the impact as much as we can day to day to local residents. And, that's always at the forefront of our mind as we're putting these plans together to again, park people further away and bring people in and minimize the impact as much as we can here in the village in Pinehurst. And this spring is when we'll kind of put out our full park and transportation plan publicly to be able to kind of share with everyone and identifying all the different lots. Just quick timeline and kind of highlights. So now through kind of the winter time, we're going to work through some long-term operational projects. So knowing that we're coming back here and knowing this is an anchor site, we've put a lot of time and thought into some long-term investments, whether it's with shore power and permanent power that we're able to put around the property to eliminate some of our generator needs, whether it's to add additional roadways or compound spaces to be able to move around the facility better. Some water, we're putting in some underground water operations to limit some of the needs for some of our kind of championship week operations. So there'll be a lot of these long-term projects that'll happen over the next couple of months and then really just continuing through our general planning and kind of ticket and hospitality sales. So in March of 2024 is when our construction will begin, that first week in March. That's when the vendors will start to arrive and things will start to be built. June 6th is when we'll open up our pre-championship merchandise opening, so that'll be open to the general public, which is prior to the championship, so that gives people an opportunity who don't have a ticket to be able to still come on site and get to the merchandise pavilion. Our players and caddy registration opens 2 days before, so June 8th, so that's when they'll start to arrive on site and get ready for the championship, and then championship will begin again June 10th through the 16th, and then it takes, it's probably 6 weeks or so for us to get all the equipment out of here and get everything restored back to where it was. But again, overall, very excited where we're at with our planning. We're very fortunate to have good partners here in the community and looking forward to continuing to work together. There you go, 272 more days. It's coming quick.
Yes, it is. Are there any questions that we can answer on behalf of the USGA?
Janine, I'm sure we'll have a few questions, but I wanted to really thank the USGA. On the one hand, the way Golf House has been planned in the initial discussions going back almost 4 years ago, I think now, there was always a question about what would these buildings look like and how would it affect the land and how would it affect the look of Pinehurst and the campus of the golf course, golf club. And right from that point, the USGA seems to have embraced some of the concerns that our residents expressed with respect to architecture and other things. But you've also taken the initiative and done some things that were maybe not on everybody's initial concern list, but really showed that the USGA was paying attention to what was being said, and specifically your attempt to recreate around the buildings the grove that was there, the longleaf pine grove. The whole issue of water management is very important to us, and that's a particularly unique corner there for that. So I think you've done a marvelous job there, and with the landscaping issues throughout the property and the curvilinear pathways, all that was very well understood. And Leighton, on your side of it with respect to the tournament, I think this idea that the USGA is concerned with about manageable experiences and creating good experience on the site when US Opens and other tournaments that you have are held is very important at this time. I think to manage the throughput, all the people who want to attend, and yet give everybody an experience that they'll remember is very wise. And certainly from my point of view, that's a great plan that the USGA has adopted, not only here, but into the future. I think we understand the timeline very well. And as Mr. Batten already knows, because he and others are already engaged with Leighton and others, the planning is ongoing here for all the things that you've talked about today. So we're very pleased, but we'll await the completion of all this as well. And on that point, I'm sure my colleagues have some things I'd like to ask about. So I'll ask any questions of the USGA at this point. Jeff, anything?
Not necessarily a question right off the bat, but first of all, great presentation.
Thank you.
I do have a much better idea, and yes, I've seen some of this, but it helps out. I want to commend you all for the efforts you've taken on being good citizens of Pinehurst. It's evident, and thank you, because that's important for us all here, and this is a great addition to our village. I am hoping that in the test center you'll have at least one presentation on how to fix a slice. So, but
Sure, our guys are that adept, but I'm sure they'll try.
all right, thank you.
They can give you the scientific version, for sure.
Go to the contemplative garden for that, Jeff.
That's right.
Other questions from the council? Lydia?
I have one quick question. This starts seeming real to the residents of the village of Pinehurst when we see that chain link fence go up. When does the chain link fence start going up? And that's an amazing project when you look at how much fencing you have to put up and then the fabric on that fencing. So when does that start?
That'll start probably early to mid-April is when it'll start. And I forget the numbers off the top of my head, but it's something like 24 miles of fence that ends up getting put on.
The big property.
Yeah, it's a big property and doesn't have any existing fencing, so.
Well, you know, another thing you guys do beautifully is you can drive down Highway 5 by the cradle and look out there and not know a major championship is going on because you guys handle it so beautifully. And the only inconvenience is Morganton Road is closed partially. So congratulations on what a great job you guys do.
Appreciate that.
Picking up on one point that Lydia made on the fencing, I think I understood, maybe I'm wrong, that the way the fencing will be placed is a little different this year, especially on the outer side of Course 2 and the effect on Course 7, or is it the same as we would have seen in 14 and 5? And
It'll be pretty similar to what we've seen. There'll be some minor tweaks, but in general, it's 95+% the same.
Thank you for that. Pat?
When this was first announced a few years ago, I said I thought it would be good for Pinehurst, the village, Pinehurst, the resort, and good for golf. Nothing's changed my mind. Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
Tom? You're a volunteer, I know, so you're getting an update already.
You on the
Thank
wait
you.
list, or did you get
Yeah.
accepted?
What hole do you want this year? Ask Leighton if he can help you with it.
Know a guy.
One of the best times of my life from 99, 05, and 14 was really spectacular. And I think we all just can't thank you enough for being here. Fantastic presentation tonight. Thank you very much.
Any other points, Leighton or Janine?
No, just thank you. We want you all to be proud of the USGA and proud that we're, at least the 65 of us are calling it home, and we're going to continue to bring world-class golf to this community because you've been so good to us. So thank you for your continued support. Once we get a little bit closer to getting our certificate of occupancy, we all welcome you to come over to the property, and we'll be happy to give you a tour so that you can see it for yourselves. So thank you.
That'll be great. We look forward to that.
Great.
Thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
here tonight. As they leave, but before we go on to the next item, I meant to say earlier under other business, I'll give a brief update on Dornick and in that golf sense. And Kristen Bunton and I have a little something to show the council tonight with respect to that under other business. So we'll move along to item number 7 and get to maybe more mundane, but nevertheless very important issues for us. And Jeff Batten, shall we just go straight to Carlton on that? All right, fine. This is a discussion and a review of a document we haven't seen for a while, in this mutual aid pact, I'll call it. And Carlton, would you please bring us up to date on all that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The mutual aid system was developed following Hurricane Fran in 1996.
Carlton, could you speak a little bit closer to the microphone? Thanks. Just bring it up to your level.
that
You're a
better?
tall guy.
I'll lean into it a little bit. The mutual aid system was developed following Hurricane Fran in 1996, at which time there was no uniform agreement among North Carolina cities and counties, so that they could help one another during and after the disaster. With no policies and procedures to address those logistical concerns, deployment compensation and liability issues, interstate cooperation was limited and inefficient. So by participating, it opens up the avenues that we have the ability to request specialized tools, equipment, or personnel from different jurisdictions. The village currently participates in the agreement. The last copy that the clerk and I were able to locate was from 2009. And the agreement was updated by North Carolina Emergency Management through feedback from county municipal emergency management partners. They did that just to provide better functionality and efficiency in making requests for assistance. The most significant change to the agreement is the ability for us as a municipality to make a direct request for assistance for items such as specialized tools, equipment, or personnel from other governmental entities during times of disaster or emergency. Previous versions of the agreement required that there be a declared emergency by the mayor for us to be able to make that request, and we also had to route that through the county to get the assistance. It identifies us as, so some of the definition and terms in the agreement that they changed, it identifies the the municipality as an emergency management agency and part of the plan, not just the county. It clarifies that we can make direct request without a local declared emergency. To activate the plan, it's simply, we make the request and then we let the state know that we've done that, and that's what activates the plan for us to use. So there was some terminology that was updated as part of the plan. It also updates references to general statutes and code of federal regulations. Within the state, all 100 counties participate, the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and about 3/4 of the state's 552 municipalities. And those that don't participate generally depend on the county emergency management agency for that service. So smaller municipalities that don't have staffing to provide the service and take care of those needs. On page 13, it asks for primary and alternate contacts to be able to make requests for assistance or to authorize requests for assistance. And through approval of the contract, we would identify those in the contract or the agreement. I would be the primary contact as the emergency management coordinator that's appointed by the manager. And then the secondary and tertiary contracts would be the assistant village manager of operations and administration. So what we're asking council for tonight is to approve the manager to be able to authorize, execute the contract on behalf of the village, and the clerk to attest your approval of that. And I'll be glad to answer questions if you have any.
Carlton, you may have said it right, didn't hear it right. Mike Newman has looked at these changes and the contract itself, or will he be doing that?
It did route through legal review when it was submitted, so
Okay, fine.
that means he.
And what you and I had talked about this a little earlier today, but what I learned from this was that, and this would be true across the state, the mayor of the town is the only one that can actually declare an emergency, right?
That's correct.
That remains in effect. But what this allows municipalities to do is to work directly with another municipality to prepare for or react to emergencies that come, right? And share resources without having to go through a county or a state organization. In other words, it meant to streamline the way that emergency management services could work together with other municipalities. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. Those are important questions I had that I wanted Carl to make sure he addressed. And I think you mentioned in your comment just now about all 100 counties and in 2/3 or so of the 525 municipalities in North Carolina
About
participate.
3/4. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I'm sure there are other questions here on this for Carlton, but anybody wish to address questions to him now? Jeff, Tom? Patrick?
Oh, go ahead, and then I just,
What type of equipment would we normally request?
It would really be situation dependent. If a hurricane or snowstorm came through and the local area is affected, it's beyond the resources that we have. We could call other towns or counties to send bulldozers, backhoes, dump trucks. The structural collapse, we
get
could
it.
get specialized rescue equipment from across the state.
And in the past, how would we operate in those situations?
We would have to make, there would have to be a declared emergency, and we would have to make the request through the county, who would make the request to the state, who would then allocate resources.
This eliminates those steps.
That's correct. If it's a large-scale disaster, we would still involve the county just from a resource management standpoint. But it gives us the flexibility to make the call directly to ask for something if it's something that just affects the village of Pinehurst.
And if it's something where we can borrow equipment or resources from just within the county, do we do that now? Or if it's, this seems to me it goes statewide, this effort.
It is statewide, so it opens up resources statewide. We would always look locally first.
First.
We do have a countywide emergency management agreement and a mutual aid and automatic aid agreement. So we can make requests to Southern Pines, Aberdeen, any of the town's volunteer departments or other jurisdictions
And Moore County.
to request a specific piece of equipment or personnel. And in return, we return that if they call us and ask for something.
Thanks.
Lydia, did you have a question?
no, just one question, sort of comment. This is not a new concept. I think I heard you say that you found one that's gone back to 2009? So mutual aid agreements, a statewide mutual aid agreement is not a new concept. We've been having a mutual aid agreement. We're just updating the agreement.
Correct?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify what you said. Perfect.
When did these changes start to get initiated? In other words, was any of this related to the power outage in Moore County in December of 2022?
I don't think that it
What
was.
things were happening around it?
I don't think it was related specifically to that. I think it's related somewhat to COVID. That was involved with it and some other natural disasters in the state, some wildfires and hurricane damage that resulted in floods and things like that were not widespread enough to be a declared emergency or declared disaster by the governor. But there's still the need for additional resources for a local community to be able to resolve the issue and mitigate the hazards.
Well, I understand this a lot better now. Thanks for presenting this. And I think it's important we become a member of the community that signs this across the state. And I certainly want to support that. Any other questions for Carlton then? Seeing none, is there a motion on this item number 7?
Yeah, I move to authorize village manager or the village manager's designee and all required staff to execute the North Carolina statewide mutual aid agreement on behalf of the village of Pinehurst.
That's a motion by Jeff Morgan. Is there a second, please?
Second.
A second by Pat Pizzella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries unanimously. Carlton, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We'll get this signed and over to you. Move on to item number 8, which is an update on our strategic plan. Jeff?
Yeah, Matt's making his way to the table. He'll give us the update for the fourth quarter of FY '23. So I'll just let him jump in and get started.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to see you all.
Good to see you, Matt.
As Jeff mentioned, I'm going to provide a brief update on the Q4 status of the strategic operating plan. And this is looking at just the high-level initiative action plan items, the metrics associated with those, and council directed opportunities for improvement and innovation. So there is the normal report that's in the backup for you, but I provided a little bit of a presentation for you here today. So overall performance for Q4, which again, this is actually looking at then all through the end of the fiscal year, which ended on June 30th, 2023. The current status is that we had 2 initiative action plan items that were in progress and on schedule, 2 that were marked as in progress, not on schedule, and 1 that is complete. And we're going to go into depth on each one of those here in a second. But as you can see, when it comes to metrics projections, 4 out of the 5 IEPs have a metric tied to them. 4 of those met the projected performance. Most of those are tied again to the annual community survey, so that's why there hasn't been any real updates on those. But we'll go in a little bit more detail on the status here.
Yeah, one question, is
Yes, sir.
this is the Q4 overall performance. Is this not also the overall performance for FY 2023?
It is.
It is, it's the same
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, so it's through Q4, all the way through. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
But the status updates were updated as of what happened within Q4. So here, the first one I'll bring your attention to is the update to the PDO, the Pinehurst Development Ordinance. This was marked as in progress and on schedule. The Q4 update that we received is that the initial draft scope of services had been developed, and this is one of those items that had been continued moving forward at that level of the draft scope. It is marked as in progress on schedule, though, because we moved the timeline during the FY 2024 strategic planning retreats and the FY 24 strategic operating plan to now moving into FY 24. So it was previously marked as in progress, not on schedule, but because of the decision by council, it is now in progress and on schedule.
Matt, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any idea when that might go out for bid?
I don't have the task list in front of me on
I
FY
don't
24.
know, honestly. I think it's been drafted, though, has it?
It has been drafted.
The RFQ
It would be in the next quarter or two, right?
probably would be
Yes.
going out.
There are
Yes.
there are steps within FY 24. I just can't tell you exactly which, if it's Q1 or Q2.
That's fine.
First quarter's seeming unlikely. July, August, September. I'm thinking maybe Q2.
Probably Q2,
Yeah.
I would suspect.
The next item on the list is the small area plans, specifically around Village Place and Rattlesnake Trail Corridor and Pinehurst South Highway 5 commercial area. This was marked as complete in Q4 because it was marked complete in Q2, so there are obviously no updates associated with that. The relocation of the public services complex, this was one of those items marked as in progress and not on schedule. The update that we can provide to you is that the Village Council and Moore County Board of Commissioners had approved the land swap, so the previously located Juniper Lake site no longer appears to be an option. So the staff is still continuing to evaluate those potential sites. I don't know if there have been any updates since this.
We have honed in on a single site and have done some due diligence work on that, identifying wetlands, and we're waiting now for those wetlands that have been delineated to be surveyed and put on a map so we can then move forward with a appraisal to get a true understanding of what the value of the property is, the usable portion of the property.
Is this likely to be taken up at the November or December retreat?
Possibly before that.
Possibly before?
Yes.
Okay, but not later than that, then? That's pretty.
Should not be. I think we would have the final pieces of the puzzle. The survey should be ready any time now, and then the appraisal would come after that. But we want to make sure that the wetland component that is present on the property is taken into consideration when the appraisal of the property is done.
Thanks.
The next item on the list from the FY 23 strategic operating plan was the retrofitting of the current athletic fields with synthetic turf. As a reminder, Cannon Park Field 1 was completed in April 2023. The next field retrofit is actually scheduled for FY 25. So although this is marked as in progress on schedule, in all of FY 2024, there's actually no action being done on this initiative action plan item.
I have one question on this one.
Sure.
And I can't remember if I spoke to Jeff or Doug on this one. It's the fence with the hole in it. If you know what I mean,
The gap.
the gap, not
Yeah.
the hole, the gap. And because I occasionally get questions about that. What's our plan there?
Do you know a plan, Doug? Because I don't believe I know a plan other than, didn't talk to me. But I'm aware of what you're referring to on the gap. I don't know if Parks and Recreation is intending to fill that gap in or not, honestly.
well, we can take it up
But I can-
again,
I
but
can
it's,
find
it's-
that
it
out.
it begs questions, and
Yeah.
I could see, it makes it easy for mischief for people who want to ride golf carts onto the field, and do other things that, after this investment, we ought to take good care of. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Now,
And
I
just,
have
sorry.
one question. On this sheet of paper, you said PR point C, 3% of residents satisfied with the quality of village parks. That looks like you're saying 3% of our residents are satisfied with the quality of village parks. So it's on
Yes,
the.
yes. So in the report, just to clarify, yes, so our KPI number, PRC3, is the percentage of residents satisfied with the quality of village parks. Yes, in the 2022 community survey, it was at 99% of satisfaction. Again,
Okay,
yes.
so yeah, the 3%, I hope more than 3% of the residents are satisfied with our parks, which is how I was reading that.
Oh, yes, so PRC3 is actually the designation of the KPI name, or key performance indicator name.
Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
And just as a reminder on this, though, in the FY24 strategic operating plan, the council has directed us to move that towards that next field retrofit, as I mentioned, in FY25, but the actual timeline now goes all the way through FY28. So you'll be seeing that update moving forward in Q1 through 28. And then also the expansion and renovation of Given Library and Tufts Archives. This is marked as in progress, not on schedule. This was an update. It was in progress and on schedule at the end of Q3. We moved this to not on schedule, and this was due to action by council direction here. The task one, which was focusing on determining a preferred location. During Q4, there was the discussion about potentially moving locations and that work. And so because of separating out library and archives, we've currently marked that as in progress, not on schedule, as we are continuing to finalize that. However, we do have a notation that we should be able to be back in progress on schedule by the end of Q1.
I think Doug Willardson has approached the mic behind you to make a comment on that.
He's very quiet. I didn't even hear him coming.
He's snuck right up. Doug, you have some ideas there, please?
Yeah, we'll be coming before council at the next meeting to discuss the locations, and the architects will present their needs analysis that they performed over the last several months. And then going back to the Pat's question about the fence, so Pat did ask me, so I looked it up. I had contacted Mark, and they had pared down the fence project a little bit to keep it within the budget. And then also, they wanted to keep it accessible for people to walk in and out so that you wouldn't have to go through a gate. He did say that there is some leftover money, so there's potential for closing that up if we wanted to.
There are two gaps, so there's the one that everyone sees when they drive by, and there's the other one in the back. The one in the back seems fine. It's the one that everybody sees, which I think will be potential mischief. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I thought I spoke to somebody.
Thanks, Doug. Go ahead, Matt.
And then moving on from those initiative action plan items, are there any questions concerning those? Hearing none. So now we're turning to opportunities for improvement and innovations, or OFIs. Looking at council-directed OFIs, there are 3 marked as evaluations. The first one is to evaluate viability of potential Fair Barn enhancements or improvements. This is marked as currently in progress, and it will continue into FY24. Some of the items in the FY24 strategic operating plan directly influenced by the evaluation that is being done with the Fair Barn, and there's some more improvements that have been designated through that evaluation that you'll be seeing into FY24. The evaluating opportunities to manage single-lot residential stormwater through PDO amendments, such as on-site storage and/or other solutions. This is an FY23 through 27 OFI and is tied to the stormwater management master plan development.
What, question?
Yes.
I think I see Mike back there. Isn't the stormwater master plan development proposal about to come to us? I can't
Yes. So as you can see in, Mike, you're better at answering that. Go ahead.
Mike Apke, go ahead.
Hopefully, it's your next meeting in September, in 2
great.
weeks.
I knew it was soon. Thank you.
So I may have needed to add the next update a little bit higher. So the evaluating the changing stormwater standards from 10-year to 25-year storm and other solutions was a 23 OFI. Again, it's marked as part of the Stormwater Management Master Plan, and that presentation is planned for you all in a couple of weeks. There are 8 OFI projects that were identified in the 23 Strategic Operating Plan. The first one, again, dealing with the Highway Corridor Overlay Ordinance and the PDO. That's currently on hold as it's tied to the PDO update. The Pursue Awareness Grant to the SRTS program at the NCDOT. This was marked as 23. It's going to continue into FY24 because it may be a part of the FY24 multimodal transportation opportunities that you all have directed us to work on. The next item is the Comprehensive Parks and Recreation Master Plan while considering neighborhood open spaces and amenities. That update was presented to Council in August, and the adoption is currently scheduled for Q2 of this year. Preparing and implementing a comprehensive stormwater master plan policy recommendations to identify effective stormwater management strategies. That is a mouthful. Again, as we talked about, dealing with stormwater master plan in Q1. The ordinance dealing with stormwater facility maintenance and post-construction, again, is tied to the stormwater management master plan. Constructing sidewalks, walkways, greenways, and/or bike paths and lanes. The final draft for Pine Vista and McKenzie extension was received, and that they're currently working with property owners with the bid project looking at Q1 of FY24. I do not hear Doug sneaking up on me, so I think that we're okay with that. Okay. The implementation of stormwater improvements, again, 23 through 27. This is looking at specifically Magnolia Road drainage project began its design work in Q4 and plan to bid that out in FY24 and Q1. And then last but certainly not least, dealing with Village Place streetscape enhancements, again, 23 through 27. Parking wayfinding signage was installed. The bollards and the planters were ordered at that time, and the benches were purchased, and most of them were placed. I know that we were still looking at sample trash receptacles at that time as well. Is there any update, Jeff?
Update for as of today. The light bollards have been received. The planters are being shipped any day now. They're actually being crated up to be sent. All the benches that we purchased are out and been placed, and the trash receptacles that we selected are on order. So we're just waiting for those to arrive.
Matt?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. I wanted to ask Jeff one other related question since he's at the speaker here. On that earlier comment about stormwater and Magnolia, what more is to be done with stormwater and Magnolia after all we've done there?
This is, I believe, part of the downtown stormwater solution. Yeah. We're about 95% done with our design phase of this and drawings. We think right now we may actually bid this in Q3, right after January 1st. Because by the time we get the bids out, received, contractor lined up, we're going to be too far into, the holiday season, the Thanksgiving time frame. We just don't want to be tearing up things around that time. So we believe that this and the four-way stop will all come to fruition. They're being designed by the same firm and in sort of conjunction with each other. So we're thinking more like the beginning of Q3 to let this project.
So it's what I would call upper or central Magnolia in the core village, including the four-way stop, not the area by the brewery and coming down.
No, this is specific to coming out
to
of
those plans.
Up at Chinquapin. It's where it'll originate at Chinquapin and Magnolia. The start of the project is there.
Yeah, you've briefed us well on that.
I say we will let this project in probably Q3. We probably will have it bid out in Q2, late Q2, to start in early Q3. So hopefully starting with the work in January.
Okay. Jeff, thanks. Matt, thank you for letting me ask that additional question on the previous item.
I have one more question for Jeff Batten. The bollards, what did we decide on with those bollards, the appearance? We're looking at several.
We've selected a less intrusive one than the...
Not the thing that looked like it belonged at the beach?
No. The one that looks like a lighthouse back there?
Yeah.
Not that one.
Thank you so much.
No, that one that was a rejected.
Thank you.
Rejection on that one. But the one we previewed that one with the beautification committee yesterday, and they were all very happy with it.
Perfect, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's small, thin. It's nothing like the one that you saw back there.
Good, thank you. Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you all. So in the actual report itself, in the backup, there are updates on the future OFEs at the time, which would be FY '24 through '28. I didn't include that in this presentation because, again, there's not any action on those yet, but they are there for your reference, and you should see that reflected in the FY '24 through '28 strategic operating plan. But with that being said, are there any other questions that I can answer for you today?
I would just make note that in the material we were presented, I find it was always helpful to keep on the report things we'd crossed off, literally, and have blacklined here so we can know the things we've changed and things we've deferred to other times or have been completed, this sort of thing. So I like that again. And the planning season is never stops, but it's getting into its peak shortly, so that'll go well, Matt. Any other questions for Matt on this report? Matt, thank you so very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Matt.
We'll move on then to item number 9, which is a financial statement report.
This
Jeff
one may be
Batten,
lengthy.
do you have a question?
May we take like a 5-minute break? I think this could be a lengthy presentation. I would love like a real short break. Anybody okay with that?
I have no objection.
All right.
4
It
minutes?
is 5:52. We'll restart at 6 p.m. All right.
Have to be
Dana,
that
if you'll
long.
hold, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
by our Finance Director. Dana, go right ahead.
All right, good evening, Council. I'm here to present the unaudited financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. So by unaudited, we just mean that the audit report on these numbers has not been issued yet. The audit is in progress. These are the final numbers that we have provided to the auditors. Their test work is done. They're in the process of their final reviews through the manager and partner levels. I'm not aware of anything that will be changed in these numbers at this point in time, but I just want to let you know that when the audit report is issued at the end of October, it is always possible that there could be something that comes up from their final reviews, that the numbers may be different. But I felt it was more important that you had this information timely and sooner rather than waiting until the numbers were absolutely final and agreed with the audit. So first, we're going to start with the year-to-date budget results. In FY23, we had a very favorable year. We added $5.1 million to our general fund balance, which out of even just our operating revenues and expenditures, we basically broke even. So in this year, where we had budgeted more capital, with the anticipation of the $5 million of ARPA funds being received into the general fund, we still basically had enough tax and other revenues to cover the expenditures that we had. That therefore then kind of allowed us to add those funds from the ARPA funding. We were able to contribute $1 million to the Library Capital Project Fund and add to our fund balance. So we ended the FY23 with over $20 million in our general fund balance. In terms of budget versus the actuals, our revenues were about $700,000 over our budget, which is good. Our expenditures, where we see the largest variance, they're about $4.3 million below budget, and we'll get into the details of those variances in a few slides. This is just a graphical representation of what we were looking at previously. The wide bar are the expenditures and uses of funds. The narrow bar is the revenues and other sources. You can see our green is our operating revenues, and those just kind of barely exceeded the red and dark blue, which were our operating and capital expenditures. And then you see the yellow, which is our other sources, primarily the ARPA funds, kind of what are really generating that surplus for the year. Now looking at our general fund revenues, we were the $700,000 over budget, which is comparable to last year. So we're kind of having a pretty consistent margin in terms of our revenues exceeding the budget. But the reasons are different. It's primarily this year as a result of getting about $84,000 more than budgeted in our property taxes, consistent, very high collection rate of almost 100%, 99.93% collection rate on our taxes. So thank you, taxpayers. Sales taxes, which made up over 50% of that surplus compared to the budget in FY22, this year only made up about $117,000 of our budget surplus. We did collect almost $7 million in sales taxes, which was about $448,000 or 6.9% more than last year. So that year-over-year growth was just about 7%. It's still good, but it is slowing compared to what the double-digit growth that we've seen in previous years. The biggest driver this year in terms of revenues exceeding budget was investment income. We collected $720,000, which was $287,000 more than the budget. We had a good investment yield of 3.69% and an average balance of about $23 million in our investment and cash accounts. When we look at, this is a closer look at the sales tax trend in terms of that revenue. as I said, it's still good positive growth. We're seeing a good upward trend in terms of the revenue dollars. But we are seeing that over 17% growth year over year that we had the last 2 years is now down to about 7%. So that dropped significantly. We follow a lot of guidance from the North Carolina League of Municipalities when it comes to projecting local option sales tax and also kind of analyzing trends across the state. This is something that even the league is saying that economists and analysts are struggling to understand why this trend is happening, but they feel this decline and slowing of the growth is consistent with other economic indicators of a potential recession.
I mean, a question. What we have constantly heard is how the tourism industry has been booming here. I mean, we have had constant reports of everything booming. That number is odd. I'm not questioning its accuracy. I'm just saying the storyline is these things are just off the charts. But you're telling us that people may be coming here, but they're not spending money?
It's hard to explain, and I have heard it's that the tourism has increased over this span of years. The addition of the ability to tax online purchases, which started in 2019, 2020, was a big part of the initial bump, but then this double-digit growth that continued was one of the things that kind of baffled the analysts from what I have researched on this. So it's not consistent across the state. Within Moore County, this level of year-over-year growth, the 6.9%, we're pretty much consistent with the statewide average of all 100 counties. So we're in the middle of the pack there. There are some that their sales tax revenue is declining, others where they are continuing to see higher and higher double-digit growth.
What about, can you break out what we get from the occupancy tax?
I can look at the various reports. There's very detailed reports available online that I can look into.
Bill Ward says that, and we are just breaking all kinds of records with occupancy tax, which is just, are they coming and staying here, but they're not buying things? I don't know.
I always,
Another thing that may skew it is the way the sales tax is allocated to the municipalities and the counties. So the sales tax collected within the county is then allocated to the county itself and the municipalities on a per capita share. It is not that what tax is earned within Pinehurst is allocated to Pinehurst. So there is going to be some kind of spreading of Pinehurst potentially, Pinehurst's contribution to sales tax revenues within the county across all the municipalities and the county itself. We may not be the direct recipient of the full amount that we are contributing to sales tax growth.
Dana, if you look at the average over, let's say, the past 10 years, I'm not sure if you got that on top of your head, what's the average increase in the sales tax per year there?
I don't know, but I will look into that, and I'll get back to you with that.
Yeah, because what you're describing there, when you start taxing the online stuff, are we just in an area right now that was aberrant for a couple of years, throwing us way high, and now we're falling back into a more normal type of growth, and just how it's calculated. Those things are the 17.8% is a tremendous amount of growth.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I can't imagine that is simply just based on tourism booming that year. There's got to be something else with it.
COVID surprised us. We thought we'd take a beating, and then online sales kept us way above where we thought we would be. But it's interesting to say that the league, or is the league looking at this, that's an inexplicable drop to them. So it's not unique to Moore County and Pinehurst. It's a statewide that
Yes.
it's inexplicable.
Yeah. And there's such a wide range in terms of the year-over-year growth or decline across the counties within the state, that it's not consistent everywhere. So But for me, I think the key takeaway here is that while we have been able to reap the benefits of this incredible sales tax growth over the last several years, I think we kind of knew this day would come where we would start to see it decline, and it is not something, it's not a revenue source that we can continue to rely upon for the long term at those levels of growth. I think it's going to come back down to potentially something that's closer to the kind of the long-term average growth for the sales tax.
How does the league communicate to us their projections? Is it something we get from them regularly, and then if we have special questions, we go to them? And I know the league is valuable to us. I just don't know if they volunteer the information to us on a regular basis or if we go solicit the information.
It's definitely at least annually. They may put it out twice a year, but they do release a report, sort of a memo or bulletin. We get one in March when everyone's preparing budgets for the upcoming year that gives their projections through the end of that fiscal year. So this March, we got one that had projections through the end of FY23, as well as growth projections for FY24 for each of the different types of sales taxes. So for the local option sales tax, utilities, electricity, TV programming, et cetera.
The only thing I'll note is that visually, it's a little distorting. We increased the amount of receipts we got from local sales tax option. Went up 6.9%. But that chart with that arrow, it leaves the impression that, God, we went downhill. Now, compared to last year, the growth wasn't as great, but we were growing our sales tax.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it still went up, just not by nearly as large of a margin.
That
Yes.
arrow is
And
visually.
And that is kind of with this graph, what I wanted you to see visually was that, yes, it went up, but the rate of growth significantly declined from what we had seen the last couple years.
That's kind of the reason for my question before. What's the average rate of growth over, let's say, a 10-year period?
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that there's some aberrant type of thing that's popped us up. And 7% growth is still 7% growth.
Yes.
Most places are very
Very
excited
good.
about that.
Yes. Any other questions on that?
No.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the expenditures. Out of the operating expenditures, which is primarily salaries and benefits, and then professional services, contracted services, et cetera, excluding capital, we were about 2.4 million under budget, relatively consistent with the amount we were under budget last year. Of this 2.4 million, we only reappropriated or carried forward about 400,000. So out of that budget surplus we have there, we're netting about 2 million added to fund balance compared to what we had projected in the budget. The primary reason is within our personnel expenses. So basically half of that, almost $1 million, was unspent salary and benefit funds. So while, and this is really just related to lapsed salary for vacant positions, there have been multiple vacancies in the police department that are taking quite a bit of time to fill. That police and fire departments were the two largest contributors to that. While this is favorable financially, it's not ideal operationally, right? This is not where we want to be seeing a massive amount of savings. We kind of as a best practice, we do budget for assuming 100% of our positions are filled for the whole year. And because that is what we feel is needed to provide the optimal level of service to our residents. So when we are this short and we know we have that many vacancies, it's not really where we want to be finding our savings because it does make it more difficult to continue to provide the level of service that we want to provide to our residents.
You know how many officers we're short in the police and the fire departments?
I think right now police is 4.
4 officers short?
I'm not sure.
I think I heard 3, but
Yeah, so it's varied throughout the year. And we also had turnover in a few director-level positions, but those were shorter term. But you do realize some savings during that time. But I think the more recurring theme is definitely within the police and fire departments.
I think we may be down 3 or 4 positions right now. There are people in the pipeline going through the process to be hired. You know, you have to go through a lot of background checks, and it takes a while to, once you make a selection, it takes a while to get them actually on board. But I think what's also happening, in just casual conversation, is we are having to hire people with less experience, just because there's a lot of people moved out of that profession. And of course, we are using our new cadet and apprenticeship kind of program to try to help drive some people into the field and then hopefully into our employment. So.
As Jeff mentioned, that is the trend that's being seen, not just within Pinehurst, but I think across the police profession, where people are leaving not just to move from one police department to another, but they're leaving the profession altogether to pursue other things. That's, from discussions with Angie, that's definitely part of the challenge. In addition to that, we did have about $200,000 of savings in contracted services, pretty consistent with last year as well, from streets and grounds pavement patching and the road resurfacing from the Powell Bill funds. And a third item is within the internal service charges. So we have 3 internal service departments: fleet, building and grounds, and IT. All of their costs, including salaries, are allocated across the other departments. But within those 3 internal service departments, they kind of realized about $291,000 of savings. And so that then results in savings within those internal charges in the other departments, which are all reflected as operating costs.
But those savings are a result because they have fewer people to service, right?
Well, fewer people to serve?
I mean, they're providing services to the rest of our government.
Correct.
So
Correct, yes.
if we have fewer people on staff, they're providing fewer services.
Their costs are not always directly tied to the number of employees.
Right. There's some correlation.
There could be some correlation,
Okay.
yes.
No, I get it. I was just trying to remember how this worked.
Yeah, the internal charges are not always the easiest concept to understand when it comes, especially when it comes to seeing the causes of these budget to actual variances.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And then moving on to capital, we had first of all a $2 million increase basically in the budgeted capital projects. That was intentional because of knowing we had the ARPA funds in FY23. So there were some one-time projects, the turf field being the largest one of them, that were undertaken in FY23. We were about 1.9 million under budget in terms of our actual expenditures, but nearly all of that, almost 1.5 million, was reappropriated in FY24. So that left about 400,000, just under 400,000. That was kind of a true surplus that kind of is added to fund balance versus what we had budgeted for. So these are the key projects that were reappropriated: streetscape, sidewalk, stormwater intersection improvements. You heard about some of the updates on some of those in Matt's presentation, and a solid waste vehicle that we already had received. In terms of the actual savings from capital, where was dollars budgeted but not spent, the largest item were traffic signal upgrades for 15501. Those projects were canceled and not done. And then the turf field, we did realize about 130,000 in savings compared to the budget for that project. All right, so that was money that came in, money that went out, and we got $5.1 million added to fund balance. And now we'll look at what kind of what that means for the village's overall financial position and looking forward. So this slide, this estimated June 30th, 2023 column is what was presented in the FY24 strategic operating plan. So when we were doing the FY24 budget, this was the estimate of where we thought we would end FY23 at that point in time. So comparing to that, at that point in time, we thought we would have a $1.5 million increase in fund balance. Now seeing that we have 5.1, we now have 20 million in ending fund balance versus the 16.7 we had planned on. So that's about 3.6 million more. When we back out the 1.9 million that was reappropriated in FY24, because yes, it was added to fund balance, but really we know we're taking it right back out and spending it in FY24 compared to what we had planned. The net addition, kind of compared to what we had planned for in the FY24 SOP and budget, is an additional $1.7 million. So we did end FY23 with our fund balance at 71% of budgeted expenditures, which is above the 30% policy minimum.
Dana, can I want to ask a question, and I feel like I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm thinking about the average person out there who looks at the first line and says, we thought that we would add 1.5 million to fund balance, but we actually added 3.6 million more than that. That's a big discrepancy. So how, in plain English, can we explain that to people who ask? Am I putting you on the spot?
Nope, because I have thought about this.
Oh,
and
let me
hopefully
write-
came prepared with a good answer.
down,
Because that's the logical thing that our residents or anyone that looks at this are going to think is, oh, wow, so you ended up with $3.6 million, part of which is my money, more than what you planned on. And really the big thing, as it's shown here, is that some of that is just money that we committed to spend and will spend, just didn't spend
So
yet.
it's a timing issue.
Timing difference, right? That's basically what the $1.9 million that's reappropriated is.
The timing difference is 1.9 million.
Yep,
So you take out the 3.6 and you take out 3.6 minus 1.97. So where's the other 1.7 million?
yep. So $1 million of that is is kind of those salary dollars, right? Almost $1 million in unspent salaries and benefits.
Okay.
Because that does not get carried forward, that
Right.
we do realize.
And I get.
And then the other 700,000 or so is, I think it was about 400,000 from capital that we truly didn't spend, where projects came in under budget or were.
So these are dollars we're
canceled.
not going to roll over, so it's, okay, so.
Right, so those are not rolling over, those are truly added to the fund balance compared to what we had budgeted for,
Okay,
which would then leave about 300,000,
okay.
right, which I think was from the other operating costs, the contracted services, some of those items.
And so, okay, so the big chunk of that was the timing difference. Okay.
Yep, yes.
Million in salaries. Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
Well,
And-
you just gave it to me in plain English, that I can explain in plain English. So,
Yeah, it's a snapshot at 5 o'clock on June 30th, 2023.
Correct.
And then in July, you turned right around and took $2 million back out of it and
Correct.
put it back into the 24 budget.
but when somebody sees that first line,
Yeah,
it can be alarming.
Yeah.
And, and a little explanation, it makes sense, so that's just what I was looking for.
Can I try my version of plain English? Okay. I have to go back down memory lane. We sat here in June, and we debated our budget and our tax rate that we were going to adopt. At that time, we were told, accurately, I'm sure, that we were going to have a fund balance availability of 65%. We were going to end up with 18.4 million. That was the honest assessment at that time. Okay, both of those, the 65% is more than twice our 30% level, and the 18.4 billion is quite a large bit of money. Now, time marches on, and at that time, I had suggested just dropping that tax rate by a penny, which would have meant $600,000 out of that then $18.4 million to provide a little bit of more of a tax cut to our residents. So here we are now. It's 3 months later, and we actually have the unaudited but the final figures. These are probably very, very good. In June, when we were developing our budget and tax rate, we had estimates, which is fair. So now it turns out that it's not 18.4 million we're sitting on, it's 20.3 million, and it's not 65% of our fund balance availability, it's 71%. 71%. That is absolutely humongous amount of money. Now, granted, we have some things, we have some of this money set aside for, as we know, we've got some hard budget numbers in there that we put aside for certain things. But most of that doesn't start until FY25, not FY24. We're in FY24 right now. And so had we cut that 1%, 1 penny out, we would still have now in our fund balance availability more than we would have had if we had adopted it back off the 18.4 million we were sitting on. Because right now, $600,000 from the 20.3 million is 19.7. So I once again, I've always called into question this policy of 30 to 40% for our fund balance availability. It's higher than the County of Moore sets. It's higher than Southern Pine sets. And I'm not attempting to have to relitigate or revote on the budget and tax that we decided upon in June. But I just want to point out again, we are doing very, very well as a village financially. Dana, if you were in the private sector, I would turn over all my financial assets to you right now. You could manage those.
I cannot take credit for
I
that.
understand, but these rates of returns are phenomenal for the taxpayers. But I just think we, as elected officials, as a governing body, should just be a little more careful with how much money we hold on to, because it is the taxpayers' money in the end, and we're never in any jeopardy, nowhere near jeopardy. We get awards because we do a good job, and we've got a hell of a lot of money sitting in our account, way beyond what our own policy calls for. So that's my plain English on it.
Got it.
Thank you.
I think your point's interesting and well taken. I think that in the planning retreat, there'll be opportunity to think about that. I will point out also, I'm not defending the surplus. We've done well. The surplus is there, the fund balance, but there are projects, and it would benefit the village to use cash rather than to use debt. So yeah, and with rates going up, so the number is higher than we certainly expected in June, but I think that the use of those funds is all those issues will be coming along soon for Village Council to grapple with. But the discussion of the fund balance and the tax rate is always at the council's discretion to do. No question about it.
Yeah, the other part of that in here, we talked, it was also the possibility that we would not get as many revenues as we thought. Okay, so it was an estimate as whether we hit high or low. We definitely hit high on the amount that we got, which again, I'd rather be in the position where you have more than have less. So it's a very fortunate one. But I think, Pat, the real message I'm getting from you, other than your predictions on the stuff, is how are we going to adjust now and look at the 5-year plan for us, and where should we be with our tax rates and going through there, and so what can we set that's going to be a reasonable, common sense, pragmatic solution long-term to be able to pay the different things that we have assessed that we're going to pay for, okay, being the library, being the different facility sites for us, the fire station, that kind of stuff, and at the same time being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And I do look forward to those conversations to make sure that we are doing absolutely the best way possible to meet our objectives.
I agree. I'm looking forward not only to having the discussion with Dr. Morgan, but with Professor Friedman.
Well, I'm not Professor Friedman, and he might have difficulty talking from the grave, but he's got some good books.
When that time comes to talk to Professor Friedman, give me a call. I'd like to be part of that.
We're both,
Hear from the great mentor of the past.
That's right.
Come out of the clouds, someone.
Oh.
Milton's a good man.
You know, the other part of this, if we were to take and have, to have gone down to just be at 30% of what was necessary on there, we would have basically dropped the tax rate instead of just a penny. We'd have probably dropped it about 12 cents. So I'm just,
If we
So-
if we did that, that wasn't what we ever thought about.
Yeah, I know. My point is, if you're trying to go down just to the 30% point, okay, or just 40%, it wouldn't be as much.
Right.
It would have been a dramatic drop. And so anyway, the decision was made by the council to maintain a more
was.
level tax rate, and I am looking forward to the conversation
Well-
on here as to where we can adjust it and make sure that we're being good steward of the taxpayer dollar with this.
Well, the decision by the council was to set the rate at this year at 23 cents.
Correct.
But in that strategic operating plan, there was a space where it called for a 1 penny increase. I think it was FY '27. It could have been 28, 6.
Yes.
I don't know which one it was.
27 or
But-
28, yeah.
But it's not baked in there. It's just sort of, projection. But let's remember.
Based on the stuff that comes out, the
Yeah,
truth that comes
But
out.
3 years ago, we were projecting we're going to have a tax rate of 33% this year.
I understand.
Last year, we were projecting we were going to spend $4.5 million on a parking garage downtown. So granted, we change things. That's why we have retreats and we have debates over these things. And I do look forward to those. But I think we as a village are in an enviable situation. Okay? We are not scrapping around and, looking through sofa cushions to find money to run our village in a first-class way that a municipality like this should run. But in the same breath, we seem to be holding on to more than we need to. But we'll have that debate. Thank you.
Dana, I'd like to go back to one point that kind of relates to this, but it has to do with the reallocation of funds to this fiscal year, what was been spent. Could you go back to that slide and maybe we could hear what has already happened with that? What's been
Point
spent,
nine.
what is yet to spend from the carryover?
Is this the slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
You had a whole list of, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yep, these here.
Yeah.
Jeff, you may be able to give some more insight as far as what has been spent so far. We did receive the solid waste vehicle, that is paid for. I know Jeff had talked about some of the downtown amenity items, the bollards, trash receptacles
we've got-
that are on order, being received soon.
All those things are on order. The stormwater intersection improvements, I'd mentioned earlier that we'll
Yeah.
probably be putting that out to bid probably mid-late second quarter in hopes of starting sometime early third quarter. As you mentioned, the solid waste vehicle was received in July.
Sidewalk is for number 6 principally, I think, and
That's a
gonna-
combination of Pine Vista,
Yeah,
McKenzie Road.
McKenzie and that, yeah.
All of that, as well as number 6, I believe, is in there too, right? Thank you.
And I know Doug just talked,
Yeah.
yesterday to the number 6 homeowners association about implementation of that. Good. Okay.
Yeah, so these are all either items ordered, being received soon, or, for the sidewalk improvements, stormwater intersection, underway and going to be moving along during FY '24.
Can you go to the slide that showed the dollar figures, 15,204 or whatever it was, that was on the same line? It was it was the other one that has how much was reappropriated. That one, right
Okay,
there.
sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, so we projected 18.4 million at the end of the year, and obviously we came in higher, but after the reappropriation, we are at $18.4 million, correct? if you add the estimate of 16,707 and 1,717, those two numbers together would be, after they took the action to reappropriate, we were at 18.4 million, which is what we had projected where we would be.
So the 16,707 plus 1717, and then the things, take back out what's reappropriated.
Yeah, I'm just talking about, Pat's comment about 18.4, which is correct.
Right.
That is what we were at right after you reappropriated the funds that we wanted to spend in last fiscal year, but didn't get to for various reasons.
Yeah. Other questions of Dana? Or anything else, Dana, that you wanted to present to us?
Yeah, I was just going to
Had your
jump ahead to a slide that I think is very relevant to the discussion that you're having now. And I apologize, I didn't put the tax rate for each year from the 5-year plan on this slide. But the tax rate increase of 1 cent was, in the 5-year plan, was in FY '26. But this is basically taking the fund balance projection section from the 5-year plan of the SOP, and the only thing that I changed was putting our actual beginning fund balance for FY '24 number in there versus what we had as the projection. And all other assumptions stay the same in terms of the plan. Just so you can see at the end of the 5 years, the impact that that has with the rest of the plan as is. In the original FY '24 SOP, with what we have projected at the time, we were ending right at 30.0%, so right at our policy minimum. This now brings that up by over 5% to where we have a little more cushion now kind of built into this plan, which will be very helpful to be able to execute this plan. Now, granted, yes, in future years, that plan can change, but at least what we had approved in the SOP in the 5-year forecast, we now have some room where if there are sales tax revenues that do not come in as high as we forecasted, or our new residential permits were well below our goal in FY '23. If that trend continues and we're not adding to our tax base the way that we have projected in this plan, we have some additional reserves that can help to offset that we did not, kind of include in here. We have major capital projects coming up. If those, in this construction environment, if those cost estimates come in higher than we planned for in this 5-year forecast, we hopefully would still be able to cover those with cash. Hopefully, it's also possible that we get to FY '26 and that new library is done and we have sufficient funds to be able to say, we don't need to do that 1 cent tax increase that was in the plan. We have sufficient resources. So it does give more flexibility in terms of being able to execute this plan, at least as it is now, but also additional funds for discussion coming into the retreat to have a better picture of what the financial resources the village has available.
I got 2 questions for you. That's the first time I noticed the 74.7%. I thought we were dealing with 71%.
So the 71% is at the end of FY '23. This would be at the end of FY '24. This is now a projection at the end of
I didn't mess.
24.
So next year at the end, we're projecting a bigger fund balance availability right now than we're having this year, than what we have this year. We're going from 71% to 74%.
Yes, but that is driven, the fund balance is actually going down, so that's being driven by a lower expenditure base.
But, okay. Second question. You mentioned the housing permit issue, and we now have seen a trend downward.
Yeah.
Is there have you factored in at all potential commercial development possibilities in either Village South or Village Place? Is there some number that's in there at all?
They were not specifically considered
Not at all.
in the 5-year forecast that we had in the FY '24 SOP. We used our pretty standard, I think, 1% tax base growth, and kind of
That's fair.
which
Thank-
is consistent with us hitting our, if we hit those permit goals in terms of the average value of a residential permit.
Gotcha.
Well, you know, another thing we discussed that we can't put in here is if the library board has a capital drive,
Yep.
and they, I mean, the cost of that library doesn't terrify me, but, you know, we said 4 million, then we said 4.6. I think it's going to be a whole lot more than that. And I think we probably, but what, 4.6 for library in here?
The total budget's 5 million, including design.
Design was 400,000, 4.6 was the construction costs. It was in our strategic plan for the last year. Matter of fact, it's mentioned 7 times in our strategic plan.
The 4.6?
Yes.
Correct. We took the 4 million and we increased it for inflation, and we know that that's a number that's probably going to be a lot higher.
Well, I don't, we don't.
I'm not going to say
Well,
probably, it could be a lot higher.
But I
that's
think
what-
my point is this, is we, you know, if you're going to live by this strategic plan, you got to die by the strategic plan. If we're telling people this is what we're going to spend, and then, oh my gosh, it's different. Well, but it's in our strategic plan. So I think we have to be careful there to say one thing to our residents over a period of a couple of years, and then shift. They should have reasonable expectations like we should have, that the budgeting we're going through, this process that we as a council and the staff does very thoroughly is within the ballpark, within the 40-yard lines of what we think we're going to spend and what we think we'll, not necessarily save, but what we think we'll have as a fund balance availability and what we will have as a tax rate. That's my only comment.
Any other questions on this piece?
No, but Dana, thank you for that last slide there, which helps to, again, draw attention to where we are, what we need to be concerned with, and where we might be in 5 years' time. Any other questions then for Dana on this presentation? Seeing none, Dana, thank you very much again. And
Bob, thank
the
you.
auditor will be here probably in November or December, do you think?
I believe it's usually the first meeting in December,
Yeah, right,
but the audit will be issued before the end of October.
right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 10. And Jeff Madden, I know you have some things to say about that. You want to go and speak
I'm
about it?
going to
And
let
then- and Doug?
Doug's
Go ahead.
going to kind of spearhead this.
And Pat and I
conversation.
can, I think Pat and I, because we've been at these meetings, can help a little bit here too. I know Jeff had
Yeah,
some
Jeff,
comments to make.
unfortunately, yeah, Jeff Sanborn is, I'm sure you probably discussed it with him. He was one of the big coordinators at the meeting as far as the discussion, because we as a village have volunteered, no one else volunteered, to take on some of the responsibilities regarding the management of this. And that was a big part of the discussion we had with our other cities and towns involved with this.
Yeah, so to start off, let's cover the naming first, because I think that's a little bit
Yes.
easier. So originally, it was the Sand Hills Area MPO. So the acronym of that is a little bit culturally insensitive. It sounds like something else that we don't want to talk about. So we discussed just calling it the Sand Hills MPO. So I think that was everything that everyone agreed upon that, and I think that works going forward. So the other issue was
I'm not
the-
quite sure on the naming, and Pat and I may talk about this, but go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Go ahead.
Okay. The other issue was the weighted voting. So as we have proposed in the MOU, there would be just a straight one-for-one vote, but at any time, if that vote is not unanimous, someone could call for a weighted vote. And so that weighted vote would be set up as follows. So
Wait a minute, I believe you need 2 people to call for that.
Yeah, that's true. It was originally 1, but now they created it so it would
Negotiated it to
be.
2.
2 municipalities.
Yeah,
to be
so
clear.
you'd
Two
have to
muni-
have
two
one
different
person make the
municipalities.
motion and someone else second the motion to have a weighted vote. So the way it was set up is that there would be, once you reach 10% of the total MPO boundary area population, you get an extra vote. And if you reach 20% of the total population, you get another vote on top of that. So that would give the Village of Pinehurst 3 votes, the Town of Southern Pines 2 votes, and then I think it gave the county 2 votes and Aberdeen 2 votes, and then everyone else would have 1 vote. And there was some discussion on that, a little back and forth. I think my perspective on it is that, we have the largest population, we should probably have the largest weighted vote. And if another community that's smaller is making changes to their transportation system, that is going to affect us. Like if a town nearby us does something and it'll force traffic into our area, or if we do something to force traffic to somewhere else. So we want to make sure that everyone has the ability to talk to that, and we wanted to make it somewhat proportional to how many people lived into those communities. So Pat and John, you are both there, so feel free to add in.
Let's just deal with the name first. There were different acronyms proposed at the meeting. I was listening to that meeting. Pat was actually there with Jeff in this room. And the one thing that came across to me, though, was this. There's so many organizations around, and they don't really describe always what they are or what they do. So I think the word transportation ought to be put into this acronym. And there was a suggestion for that. Was it SATCO or so? I think, Pat. Sand Hills Area Transportation Planning Organization. Because if you don't put transportation in there, it could be one of many other different organizations. So from my perspective, I would support that as opposed to any other name that's been presented so far. So let's talk about that a little bit. And Pat, do you want to add to that?
Yeah,
comment?
I was in that meeting. It went for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it took about 2 hours to get people. You had about, I don't know, a dozen different municipalities sitting around there to get them to agree to a decision. And they agreed with the Sand Hills MPO. So
I thought they left open because it's in the notes that left open the transportation acronym, no?
Well, I don't know if it was left open. I remember it being discussed, but I remember there were two difficult hurdles to get
Right.
over there. Okay, so because we were watching the calendar, we got to get things done in time so they can get to the governor and be signed before the end of the year. And the two big issues was this weighted voting. It took a while, but we got people to agree that it would take two, not one. So because if you had one, everybody would have a veto on anything we did. So if you need two people, it's a little different situation. And the second thing was, what do we go with a name for? And I thought when we left that meeting, there was pretty good consensus on the Sand Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization.
I don't recall it that way. I don't recall the decision being made, and I completely agree with John that the name transportation should be in there. And don't they meet this Thursday? Can it be brought up again?
If someone wants to bring it up, that's fine. I'm just telling you.
I like the word transportation because, like you said, what's it planning? It's planning transportation.
So
Well, I think it helps. Now, what we're being asked to do is to, as a council, make decisions tonight to take back to the next meeting, which is the 18th, no,
Oh, I think it's
21st, I
Thursday.
think, of September. And that all the municipalities will have to vote, and therefore there'll be a decision on whatever the majority is. So if Pat feels that the non-transportation is the one that people were supporting most, I think we need to be aware of that. But if it's possible and people are coming back with that has a transportation name in it, I think we could support that.
Lydia, maybe you recall which community wanted transportation in it. I don't recall it.
I recall it was Southern Pines that brought up changing the name. but
Yeah,
I
they
don't-
did. They didn't
yeah, I
say
don't recall
transportation.
I don't recall a decision being made, but
No, a decision was made.
if it's been made, it's been made, and we could ask that it be reconsidered, but I think it makes a whole lot of sense to put the word transportation in this.
My recollection is that it was brought up about changing the name. It was brought up by Southern Pines. It was a bit of a discussion before we got to what we got to. Transportation was surfaced as a name, but I don't remember anyone.
Yeah.
I don't remember there being a vote or big
Okay.
support for transportation.
If I may, I don't recall the exact where we ended, but I recommend that the council, if you feel so inclined, to recommend that you change it to SATPO. And then if that does not gain traction, agree that Sand Hills Metro MPO is an okay name.
Yeah, that would be the empowerment that we should have taken to this next meeting.
I think that's reasonable.
Is that all right, Jeff?
That's reasonable.
Tom, you understand how this is coming together? All right, so we'll lead with that and hopefully get the transportation word in there, but we don't want to hold up the work of the organization because there are some timelines coming along. Now, the other on the weighted voting, and I know that Jeff put a few comments to us this afternoon. Do you want to speak to
Yeah,
that?
I can go over those real quick. So other communities, they do the weighted voting differently. So some of the larger groups, they have, if you have a weighted vote, rather than weighting the vote itself more, they just add another member. So the Village of Pinehurst could have 2 or 3 voting members rather than just one vote that counted for 3 votes. So that is one model that could be done. The problem with that, though, is our group already has 9 different municipalities. So if you add 2 more for Pinehurst and 2 more for Southern Pines, that's a lot of people voting. It can get very difficult and overwhelming. Some of the other things that Jeff mentioned is that he looked at 15 small MPOs in the area, so North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina, and he said 9 of 15 had weighted voting, and that they were mostly done by adding board members for the larger municipalities. As I went through looking at a bunch of MPO agreements throughout the state, I actually don't recall any that didn't have some sort of weighted vote. But I wasn't specifically looking for that. But it is very standard that there is a weighted vote, and I think it's appropriate for specifically our situation.
My feeling and recollection was we should have weighted voting. It's appropriate for, and described as we earlier heard from Doug, that Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen, and the county would have, what, two votes, right?
2 or 3.
Two,
Yeah.
all right. That's the model we should support rather than add board members.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? That's okay?
I definitely prefer the weighted vote and not adding more board members going directly to your point. I mean, that was a big room with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, can you imagine adding 6 more people?
There's no room.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
the greater populations,
appropriate.
but not only people, but cars. I mean, we have more people driving on our roads down here, which, I mean, we have a greater transportation impact down here in addition to the greater number of people.
Absolutely right. And the idea that, that weighted voting may sound to certain individuals as not fair or so, is very fair because in this case, the weighted voting is organized along population lines.
Exactly.
So that's the driver that I think is important here.
And if you look at it, the smaller communities per capita still have more of a voice, even under weighted voting, than people in Pinehurst or Southern Pines.
So we endorse the concept of weighted voting by number of votes per municipality allocated according to the model that was mentioned. And as to the name, SAPO is out there, but SATCO is, we'll try to work to that end if it's possible.
Yeah.
Was there
Sand Hills
something
Area Transportation Planning Organization, correct?
Sand Hills Area Transportation Planning Organization, SATPO, right. We'll try to get that. All right. Was there anything else, Pat, from the meeting that you recalled? I don't see it in Jeff Sanborn's notes. Doug, you were there too, of course. No.
I think those were definitely the 2 major points that we
Okay.
discussed.
All right. Any other questions on the Metropolitan Planning Organization? We have direction to the delegates for the next meeting. All right, I want to, we'll go then quickly to other business. Kristen, could you come up? Kristen, could you come up? I just want to make an update on Dornoch. The cooperative liaison of mutual benevolence between Pinehurst and Dornoch, Scotland, is all but in effect. We have signed the agreements, as you know, back in June. I will be able to travel there. There will be a meeting next week on the 20th of September to have a formal signing in Dornoch itself. And the theme of the overall agreement, of course, is Donald Ross, birthplace to workplace, being Dornoch his birthplace, Pinehurst his workplace over the years, and many other sidelights to that as we go along. Kristen was helpful, please. we don't have a Pinehurst flag. And I approached
We have a seal.
Kristen with this idea, and Jeff Sandberg and I talked about it. So I'm going to take this, with your agreement, to Dornick. It's to be inside and hanging in their chambers, their village hall. And I think that it, with the seal, which was our 100th anniversary seal, captures all the things we hope to achieve through this agreement. Olmsted is even in here, but of course Donald Ross and the chapel and other of the key Pinehurst organizations. So I will present that to them next week when I'm in Dornick itself. I'm happy to make this trip. It's totally at my expense. It was a trip that my wife and I had been planning for a while, so we changed our plan in order to be in Dornick and represent the village of Pinehurst for this.
If you need me there, you just let me know. Post haste.
Make sure you have pictures. John, make sure you have pictures of this presentation.
Oh, yeah, we will, yeah. And when we come back, we'll have other publicity about it.
Oh, yeah. That's very cool.
Moving on, unless there's other business.
I got a few things.
Patrick, did you have a question?
Yes, I see
Okay.
Doug back there. Doug is going through some old notes. Jeff Sanborn once mentioned that he had assigned you sort of the task of, I'm quoting now, dusting off the shelf some old policies that needed to be updated. And several months ago, you brought us some that we did update. And I just wondered if that's an ongoing process, or is there more in the pipeline, or have you covered the whole shelf now? Is it all the dust gone?
I like to think the dust is all cleaned up, but so there are, I don't know the exact number, maybe 30-ish village policies. So we reviewed all of those, and we made changes to maybe a dozen of them. So at this point, I think I'm comfortable with where we are with those. So I don't anticipate any coming forward in the near future. But obviously, events may happen, and that could change.
Okay, well, that's good. I just didn't know if we were going to hit with the.
No, I won't bring 4 or 5 more next week. Yeah.
It's fine. And if there's things that need to be cleaned up, we ought to do them. Okay. Second thing, I'm guessing that my colleagues received in the mail this postcard asking for people and groups to oppose H.R. 3557. It's a bill in Congress. And it's in this position, to encourage legislators, federal legislators, to vote no, is endorsed by the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties. And I wondered, it's something to do with telecom and infrastructure. And I'm wondering, has anybody else seen this or know anything about it? All right. Well, could I ask you, Doug or Jeff, to find out, or what?
Did it go to your mother-in-law?
No, it didn't go to my mother-in-law. She would know what to do with this. But anyway, maybe you can hunt down if this has some impact on us. I don't get it, okay? So those are my 2 other business items I was trying to catch up on.
All right. Is there any other business? Seeing none and having no comments from attendees on the list, we'll have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, please, and move into the work session.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
It's a motion by Lydia Bosch, second by Pat Pizzella, to adjourn the regular meeting and move into the work session, and I recommend we go straight to the work session and pick up the couple of items we have to deal with there tonight. We'll call together the work session of September 12th, 2023, the Pinehurst Village